Folks, welcome to Friday. You made it to the end of the week. This is So Bad It's Good, and this is your pal Ryan. I'm coming at you 10 p.m. on Thursday night. We are doing a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills recap of episode 2, but we're going to start with some breaking news. Wow. I'm once again asking Bravo to just slow it down for the month of December. We're trying to celebrate the holidays and be with family and friends, and you guys are going nonstop, not only on the shows you're releasing every night of the week, but also the news that is coming out of your shows. Obviously, I am talking about the news that Bronwyn Newport and the Todd father, Todd, are headed for divorce. That's right, headed for divorce. And this is exclusive to So Bad It's Good. I had to put this at the top of the show. No other show is going to have this. I have audio of Todd's reaction to the news being leaked to the press this evening. Here is Todd's reaction. Wow. Powerful stuff, folks. Powerful stuff. And just because there will be a handful of you that believe that is Todd, that is not. That is, unfortunately, a sound effect. This is wild news. It is not surprising news, but it's wild news because if you listen to my Real Housewives of Salt Lake City recap, I speculated on this matter. And I was watching Watch What Happens Live with Heather Gay, and she said the person that cries at the reunion the most is Bronwyn. And for me, that was a huge tip-off because, listen, there's obviously been so many issues with Todd in Bronwyn's 2 seasons on Salt Lake City, but to me, that was like crying at a reunion. Who cried the most? Bronwyn. That tipped me off. And I swear to God, I have no inside information from the production company or anybody that works on this, but I almost was certain. And if you listen to yesterday's show, yeah, I was definitely thinking that she was going to make this announcement. And it looks like, even though this has not been fully confirmed by Bronwyn and Todd, I do want to mention that as well, it has been dropped to mainstream news now. Page 6 dropped this news at 6:11 p.m. tonight. This is an article by Bernie Zillow. Real Housewives of Salt Lake star Bronwyn Newport and husband Todd Bradley splitting after 9 years of marriage. Page 6 can confirm this. Multiple well-placed sources told us that the star 40 is separated from the tech exec 67 years of age. They had a 27-year age difference. One insider tells us the two are headed for divorce, while another echoes that they're looking at a divorce. Both agree that Newport is the one who wants out. This is not Todd. This isn't Todd going, how dare you make fun of my farting and looking at lingerie on planes and making Muzzy live with us. How dare, and making me listen to non-stop stories about Lisa Barlow and these cast of hooligans. No, it says she wants out. Earlier on Thursday, a source told Radar Online, where celebrity news, Radar Online must have their offices in hell, that Newport announced she was separating from Bradley at the season 6 reunion taping, which took place last week in New York City. This shouldn't come as any surprise, though, the source said, noting that Newport is disgusted by what she's been seeing on TV in regard to how Bradley treats her. He's coming off badly, the source argued, reiterating that the breakup is truly not shocking. It isn't shocking. Like I said that yesterday, but there is still something shocking about it, and I don't know what that is. And I was thinking about it since I found out the news a couple of hours ago. Now, this is neither here nor there. I got to this news a little late. Rebecca had a loss in her family. And so we went and sat Shiva with some of her family. And I've never sat Shiva before. It's a Jewish tradition of mourning. And, rest in peace to Oren. And I thought it was very beautiful. It was a very beautiful practice to acknowledge the loss that everybody had just had. And the rabbi that was there said he was talking about memory because everybody was going around and sharing memories of Oren, which I thought was so beautiful. And people, just like in life, you might have these loving memories, or you might have these memories that are clouded at that point of time of like being like angry or upset or confused about something. But he said memory is tricky, because memory can change over time. Your memories can change over time, and how we approach things change. Our feelings can change. And, you never know what somebody is going through. And you only usually learn kind of years down the road, and your relationship to that truth changes as well. So, as always with these are silly shows that I do. I mean, for the most part. I mean, I just played a bunch of fart noises for the love of God. But I also want to remind people, and I think we all know this, but sometimes we refuse to acknowledge it, even though we watch reality television, is that these are real things. These are real people. Is that you never know what somebody is going through. These are tragic things, even though we try to find ways to make them funny, or we're so outraged by somebody's behavior. And you look at something like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills tonight, and Mauricio going around hoeing it all around Beverly Hills. But at the end of the episode, Kyle Richards finally acknowledges that she was with somebody after the Mauricio split. And not only was she with somebody, she was in love with that somebody. Obviously, that somebody is Morgan Wade. And I was kind of weirdly proud of Kyle, even though I'm like, God, thank God already. And you don't know what Kyle has been through. And there are some interesting things when we get to that scene that we'll talk about. But I do think it's one of those weird, I don't know, it's a weird phenomenon that I always think about because I talk about these shows every day. And I've now done this show long enough where I've seen something happen in the press and on the show, and then years later, you get a fuller understanding of what happened. Is that we always have one reaction to something, and usually it's a kind of anger and outrage, and then years later, you're like, oh, that's what was going on behind the scenes? Man, that must have been difficult for everybody involved. I've had that phenomenon, and I always try to explain that to you guys too, is that we also have batshit crazy things that happen in our lives. And if you told somebody, or if somebody heard it second or third hand, you'd be like, I don't understand that at all. That's completely ridiculous. And then you talk to that person, or you actually have a fuller understanding, and you're like, okay, now it makes more sense. Now it makes more sense. The Bronwyn Todd thing, though, was so odd because I've speculated about this for the last 2 seasons of why. First off, why does Todd behave the way that he does? He seems grumpy. He seems gruff, which is fine. He's a business guy. He's got his mind on his money and his money on his mind. But you do kind of go like, damn, why did you agree to even participate in this show, let alone have your wife be on this show? And then once you saw how that first season went, you agreed to do a second season. And you're even worse the second season. You stole her sundae, and she told you stole the cherry on top of her sundae, and she told you in the scene, the cherry's her favorite part, man. And you just ate the cherry. On top of, they caught you looking at lingerie photos on an airplane. On top of, Lisa Barlow told Angie K that Todd was making out with somebody and farting the whole time. That is wild. So when I heard this news, it didn't surprise me, but at first I was like, oh, Todd must have finally was like, enough is enough. And then it was like, no, Bronwyn says enough is enough. There are so many thoughts that go through my head, especially relating to housewives in general. If you remember the first season of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, we had Camille Grammer, right? OG Beverly Hills housewife. She was married to sitcom legend Kelsey Grammer. And you're like, wow, big star on this show. And then you realize halfway through the season, you're like, Kelsey doesn't really seem to fully dig Camille. And then he went and did that, Victor Victoria musical on Broadway. And they went and visited Kelsey, backstage. And you could just tell Kelsey was not into Camille at all. And years later, Kelsey admitted that he did that show to give her a parting gift, to give Camille a gift of, here, you have your own thing. Leave me alone now. I'm obviously paraphrasing. Now, this is not exactly that. Or is it? Who knows? I mean, the conspiratorial part of my brain, I try to make sense of everything. And my thing was, why do you go on this show? It seems like they've had problems from the beginning. And we're going to go into Todd's finances in 1 second, because I want to remind people, if Bronwyn was telling the truth, that they have no prenuptial agreement in place. Unless she was fibbing about that the first season. No prenup. And I do believe this was a very real relationship. They've been together for a very long time, well before Real Housewives of Salt Lake City was even a thought in anybody's head. But I was trying to make sense of this, and I was like, well, they seem to he seems to have this really kind of gross behavior, and there seems to potentially be other ladies, or at least he's looking at other ladies online. We have that at least proven. So there seems to be a lot of mystery about Todd, but they also seem to communicate openly, and some of that openness is even filmed. So what if you did something, you knew something was like nearing its end, but you're like, hey, let's set ourselves up for success. Let me be on. That doesn't make sense either, because why would he allow himself to look this piggish on television? Also, Muzzy, her mom, you know my theory that they're the same person. Interesting. Todd won't be on next season, but Muzzy will. We still have not seen them in the same room. That is neither here nor there. But I was trying to think of like, could this be? And then I was trying to think about finances, because Bronwyn has one of the most amazing styles in terms of clothing on this show. So many amazing designers and pieces. And I thought, oh my God, I'm worried if she's going to be able to afford those. But then I remembered the prenuptial agreement part, and who knows? Not that this is about money. But I did notice, obviously, Todd was not at BravoCon, nor did I expect him to be, especially after how he is portrayed, or how he is himself on the show. But he also wasn't at her last Watch What Happens Live appearance. He wasn't at that football Peacock thing, that reality hot seat that was on Sunday night. He's not been at a lot of recent events in Bronwyn's life, and she's out there pounding the pavement. She's out there, I love Bronwyn. You guys know that. But I'm really trying to make sense. And there is something that obviously makes me sad. It's around the holidays. And think about the year that Bronwyn has had. She has lost her dad this year. She deals with her mother, even though I've really warmed up to Muzzy. Her daughter has gone away to college, which they deal, or are starting to deal with that on this season of the show. There are so many changes in Bronwyn's life. And I have to imagine, even if you are celebrated on one of these shows, the cold, hard reality is that you still go home and live your life. You still go home, and it's not about us fans. It's really about that life you have set up at that point. And there are so many questions, like, does she stay in Salt Lake City? She recently got U.S. citizenship, which is a storyline on this season as well. And that's another thing, like, did she make sure that U.S. citizenship? And she said that the Todd father pulled no strings in that. Of course, she was on John Lovett's podcast. We had John Lovett as a guest last week on the show, and Bronwyn was the guest this week, and it's a great interview. I highly recommend it. But she said she also recognizes the privilege. Like, he didn't pull strings, but she actually, realizes her privilege made it much easier than most people in this country, which is so important to remember in this time, especially. So obviously, I think we were going to hear this from Bronwyn's mouth at the reunion. I do wonder who officially leaked this, because I think Bravo was hopefully trying to keep this under wraps. And I do wonder at this point if they will give us a clip of that footage earlier, because Bravo wants to be the one in control of the narrative. And if Bronwyn will start acknowledging this in interviews, because I still think we are 3 episodes away from the reunion where this would be announced. And so I would imagine this will be announced at the end of the first episode, or maybe even somewhere in the beginning of the first episode. I could be wrong about all of this. I'm just speculating. Another reason I thought that they were headed towards Splitsville is that on Watch What Happens Live, when Bronwyn was on the last time, somebody had recorded footage of in the commercial breaks where Andy, maybe it was after Watch What Happens Live, kneeled at Bronwyn's seat and said, "You are the MVP this season. You are the MVP this season," which led me to believe that Bronwyn was going to even be more honest and more open about everything than she already is. And I do wonder if somebody like Meredith Marks, who is kind of a question mark wrapped in a riddle at this point, if there is a little bit of, I might need to be more open about my life. There's so much speculation about what will happen with Meredith at this point. Now, they're not going to pick back up cameras because the end of this season has already been finished. But I do wonder if they're going to pick back up cameras early to start filming the next season. Or hopefully they'll give all of these ladies a little bit of a break because they need it. Now, let's dive in to Todd's previous marriage and some of the financial things that went on in that marriage. His last, hold on, I'm trying to pull this article up. This is from the Daily Mail, January of this past year. The headline reads, Real Housewives star Bronwyn Newport's husband Todd's $14 million divorce settlement to ex-wife revealed. So it says, during the nearly 28-year marriage, Todd Bradley gifted his ex Margaret Bradley, 66. So Todd, his first marriage was to Margaret Bradley, and they were the same age. And he had gifted her lavish jewelry similar to what Bravo fans have witnessed the tech exec gift his current wife. The former couple also owned multiple residences, an English-style manor in Palo Alto, California, that's now on the market for $14.9 million, and a stunning 5-bedroom mansion in San Diego. In court documents obtained by Daily Mail, details of Todd's divorce to his ex can be revealed, including the multi-million-dollar settlement. Margaret filed for divorce after 27 years and 11 months of marriage in August of 2009, citing irreconcilable differences as grounds for divorce. Margaret and Todd got married when they were 22 years old and went on to welcome 2 children together. Right? A San Diego judge signed off on the divorce in September of 2012 after the parties' negotiations were carried out at arm's length before the judge. They got assistance from each of their attorneys, forensic accountants, and financial planners per the docs. A marital settlement agreement as part of the dissolution of marriage details how Margaret waived her right to any spousal support from Todd. There was no child support involved since their 2 children were not minors at the time of filing. Instead, the parties agreed on a $4 million settlement that the former Hewlett-Packard exec paid to his ex. Now, only $4 million, even though he was valued at much more at the time. It says, in consideration of the mutual waivers of support, Todd shall pay Margaret the sum of $4 million as set forth in the marital settlement agreement. Said sum shall not be taxable to Margaret nor deductible to Todd. Okay, so that was a straight bore. As far as the equalization payment, Todd and Margaret decided that there would be no equalization payment since the parties have divided all community property assets and liabilities and accounts equally. In addition, each party agreed to pay his or her own attorney fees, costs, and other expenses, although Margaret had requested Todd pay her fees when she filed the petition for divorce. In Todd's income and expense declaration filed in December of 2010, it was estimated that Margaret's gross monthly income at the time was $30,000. He noted that the estimate was based on the approximately $10 million in cash Margaret received as a result of a partial division of marital assets to date. Okay, so that's their marital assets. She got $10 million. With the additional $4 million, his ex-wife received a combined settlement of $14 million. Todd, for his part, noted that he was earning a gross monthly income of $60,219 as executive VP of Hewlett-Packard. He also noted that his average monthly commissions or bonuses was approximately $797,518. His average monthly commissions or bonuses? So he was getting a monthly salary of $60,000, but then bonuses each month of $797,000? That's got to be a misprint, right? Or is that real? If I had a time machine, I would go back and I would follow this Todd around and just try to be his assistant. His gross income in 2009 amounted to over $10 million. That was just for 2009, folks. His current reported net worth is estimated to be $24.6 million, and that was at the beginning of 2025. Margaret separately filed her declaration of disclosure, which included separate and community property and jewelry gifted to Margaret during the marriage. This is funny. As Bravo fans are aware, Bronwyn received her own $4 million gift during their anniversary celebration in Palm Springs, a $4 million opera necklace that's made of 170 carats, which turned out to be a lie. We found out that Bronwyn did not purchase that necklace, right? Thank God. Bronwyn has one child from her ex, who tragically passed away, an 18-year-old daughter named Gwen, who we've met on this show. Now, Bronwyn and Todd met in 2014 in San Francisco while she was working in finance, and then they got married 2 years later and moved to Salt Lake City, where they eventually settled down into a 14,966 square foot mansion. Wow, good for them. And then they talk about that their relationship has been rocky throughout the course of this show. So that is a little bit into Todd's finances. Now, like I said, Bronwyn said in that first season that there is no prenuptial agreement. But Bronwyn, she seems like she gets it. She seems like she's hip to things. And I'm very curious where all of this goes. And obviously now her third season on Salt Lake City is all but assured. And we do know her storyline. Like, will Bronwyn date? What kind of dudes is she going to be dating? Does she go for older guys? Does she go for younger guys? What does the future look like for Bronwyn? And what does the future look like for Todd as well? I mean, what I have so many questions about this. And even though we were joking around in the beginning, I feel sad for anybody's relationship that splits up. I mean, who knows? Maybe Todd will go work as like executive VP of Loverboy with Kyle Cook. You just don't know. Okay, now, as soon as this news was announced, Lisa Barlow in her Instagram stories, she doesn't say Lisa's name at all, but she and her husband, John Barlow, are walking down Main Street in beautiful Salt Lake City. And this is what Lisa Barlow says. Now, this is right after this Page 6 story drops. So I just put two and two together, but this, here we go.
It's December in Park City.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
I know. We're not crazy about each other. It's fucking dumb, but
Crazy. It's fucking dumb.
Yeah. We've been together for 23 years.
I'm going to walk in front of Lisa now.
But we want to show you Main Street. So we're going to our lounge. And oh, yes, I needed the light. So we're going to our lounge premiere on Main Street. Park City is magical. When I moved out here and went to college, I spent so much of the winter up in Park City. I'm not the best skier, but I can ski, and fell in love with this city a long time ago. This is our second lounge on Main Street. Our first one was Silver.
I mean, she keeps going on, but that started with, oh my God, what is going on? And she looks a little tipsy, and John seems a little tipsy too, which I love. You know, but they said something like, we've been married 23 years, and anybody that thinks we're not fucking obsessed with each other, and that's right. Like, John and Lisa Barlow, even though they've portrayed, or it seems like they've, John was a little lippy with Lisa earlier in this season, a couple episodes ago, but I saw him at BravoCon. I was like, dude, they're obsessed with each other. And she says it here, but pointing out that they've been married and strong for this long, right as that news got released. And Lisa was there at the reunion, so she already knew this. You don't even have to say Bronwyn's name. This I was just like, damn, like, cut somebody when they're down. That was wild. Classic Lisa Barlow. Obviously, we'll be reporting more information on this as it comes forward, but I thought we had to open the episode this way. We had to talk. I can't believe this is the Todd father. I can't. Thank God I'm not going to have to hear Bronwyn talk about any of these garbage trash can ladies again. Like Lisa Barlow can suck all of my farts. I'll tell you that much. Speaking of trash can people, we reported on the news that Jen Shah was released from prison yesterday, and I was speculating about the restitution, that $6.5 million that she owes the victims, that I am really, really excited for her to pay back, because a lot of people try to skip out on restitution, and I hope Jen Shah is not one of those people. And we got a little clue about how Jen Shah plans to pay this restitution back. That is because this is, according to an Us Weekly headline, Jen Shah accused prison warden of unconstitutionally keeping her locked up in lawsuit. That's right, folks. Jen Shah is suing her prison. She is suing the Texas warden. And I'm trying to find information on the other, but I hear that Jen Shah has now 3 lawsuits against this prison. 3 lawsuits. That is how she is probably going to try to pay back this restitution. Throw her back in the slammer. My God. So it says she filed a lawsuit against the Texas warden prior to her release from prison. Us Weekly can exclusively report. They reported this last night. On August 18th, Shah sued the warden. On August 18th, Shah sued the warden at FPC Bryan in Texas, a minimum security federal prison. She claimed that prison officials were improperly calculating her release date. They gave you like 6 different changes, bumped up your release 6 different times, and you're still complaining? Shah demanded she be let out on August 6th. She had a spotless disciplinary record, Shah's filing alleged, as she demanded to be released to community confinement. Shah said officials went to her home in Salt Lake City on March 19th to review the property before she was released. In her petition, Shah claimed she was suffering severe prejudice and loss of liberty while being unconstitutionally confined beyond her schedule scheduled release date. Shah revealed she had completed the residential drug abuse program while behind bars, which earned her a 12-month reduction to her sentence. This program includes 9 months of highly regimented programming, including daily treatment groups, individual counseling, written assignments, behavioral contracts, and strict compliance with program rules. Shah said she graduated on August 5th. In her petition, Shah said they tried to rescind the credit, but she demanded that it be applied to her sentence. In response, the warden demanded that Shah's petition be dismissed. The official said Shah was set to be released in August of 2026 and argued her lawsuit had no legal standing. On October 3rd, Shah responded to the warden in court. She said she remained in custody due to the prison's inconsistent administration of its own policies. The judge had yet to decide before Shah was released from the Texas prison on Wednesday, December 10th. So this is confusing a little bit. I'm not a lawyer. I hope the Bravo docket covers this. So Shah's attorney said Jen successfully completed the drug abuse program on August of 2025 and consistent with longstanding BOP policy and practice should have been released shortly thereafter. Ultimately, the Bureau of Prisons has So they're saying she should have been released in August now instead of December, even though Jen's filing was not about avoiding responsibility. It was about ensuring that the BOP followed its own rules and honored the benefits tied to program completion. This is not an isolated issue and continues to infect incarcerated individuals across the country who have done exactly what this is. Okay, so she's fighting for other prisoners? Okay. Yeah. I'm a little confused about this. Now, in terms of the restitution, it says in the court ordering, you shall make installment payments towards your restitution in the amount of 15% of your gross income. So that's wild. So if Jen does get another TV show, she gets to keep 85% of that gross income and only has to pay 15% of that towards restitution? Shah is also barred from incurring new credit card charges or opening any new lines of credit without getting approval from her probation officer. So this was a little thing that got brought up today that I was fascinated by. I had heard that there were 3 lawsuits that Jen has going towards this prison right now. So as soon as I find those other 2, I'm going to let you know. But I just thought, already. Like, if you get your sentence reduced 6 times, to me, that is like, oh my God, thank you. I served less than half of my sentence. I think that is infuriating. Also, TMZ has footage. If anyone cares, I certainly didn't. I thought the footage of her coming out of prison was interesting, but then there was it looked like it was at a mall in Salt Lake, hugging her family and friends. And, that's her business. But you do wonder if that footage is being sold or, how much that footage is being bought and where that money is going. Who is that money going towards? And a lot of people, it's like if they're, they'll go through an intermediary so that money is not connected to them at all. Also, some people are like, oh, well, I'm sure, Jen Shah is not going to be on Salt Lake City, but I bet she pops up on House of Villains. Think again, folks. House of Villains is produced by NBC Universal, the company that owns Bravo TV. So do not expect Jen Shah on House of Villains anytime soon. It is all under one umbrella. I'm not saying she will not be on reality TV. I just do not believe she will be on any NBC Universal properties for many, many years to come. Who knows? Hey, listen, at this point, the only way potentially back on Salt Lake City is if Jen Shah starts dating Todd, Bronwyn's ex, at this point. Or, wow, God, what if Muzzy dates Todd? Who knows, folks? After this break, we are going to get into our Beverly Hills recap. It's me, Morgan. Kyle talked about her love for me on tonight's show. Glad you're here, folks. Happy Friday.